The consciousness that has shrunken to become one particle in an ocean of different particles is at war with all of those particles and with all of the particles within the consciousness that are projected as those particles that one sees in the world. And it's this internal warfare of the shrunken consciousness, of different elements of desire and of fear and of territoriality that are fighting for a shrunken bit of pie because they've lost the whole delicious, blissful pie of absolute consciousness. And so it is the having lost the supreme, infinite nature of your being that is the ultimate cause of all suffering. And then that suffering gets projected as a world full of greedy beings struggling for territory and power and possessions and all of those things that it believes will fill its lack when it won't. So once you have shrunken down into the belief that you're just a little person in a giant world, then that person no longer has free will. It can think it does because it wants things, but it cannot change what it wants. And it knows deep down that what it wants will not bring it happiness. But it can't stop wanting it and pretending that if I only get this object or this person or this situation, then I'll be happy. But none of it will bring you happiness, no matter how successful that ego particle might be in the world in terms of income or status or prestige or good looks or whatever it is that represents what you think will bring you happiness, popularity and all kinds of friends on your Facebook or whatever it is that you're trying to amass and collect, because egos are collectors, that you think will bring you happiness. Whether it's money you're trying to collect or it's gazes of adoration or whatever, it won't do it, and you know that. And so once you have understood that there is nothing you can get that will bring you happiness, except to stop being a shrunken version of who you really are, then you will know happiness. When you know your full potentiality and your full extent of being, extending in time beyond this lifetime and before you were born into this shrunken state, and extending to dimensions beyond the one that you can perceive with the senses. When you are in that expanded state, then you will know happiness. And so, because happiness is what everyone is searching for, but looking in the wrong places and from the wrong level of consciousness, there is always that anguish and disappointment and anxiety of never being able to get what you think you want, and when you get it, realizing it wasn't what you want. But there's no escape from that fate within the ego. But the escape is very simple, by realizing your true self. And it's the only escape the only liberation from what will otherwise be an endless war within your consciousness between different fragments that want different things, that will ultimately produce a deadlock and a paralysis of will and a confusion and a desperation and a sense of dread. But the expansion of consciousness brings the realization of the perfection of all that is, and that perfection, which cannot be improved upon, is your own, because what you see is what you are. And once you have activated your real freedom of will, which comes when you have surrendered to the will of God, which is your supreme self, that freedom of will, not the ego's will to get things that it believes falsely will bring it happiness, but the real will of that perfect self that you are, will bring happiness to the whole, not just to a particle of the whole, but to the whole, because your consciousness is identified as the whole. And as the whole, everyone will want your happiness as an individual within the whole, because you want the happiness of everyone else. And because you bring that happiness to everyone else simply by seeing that they are already manifestations of it, it is all accomplished instantaneously. And it's very miraculous. But if you are in the ego state, then nobody's happy. And there's a paranoia in the ego state that everybody is against you. And there's always that fear that you can lose everything and you can be destabilized easily, which is true at that shrunken state, because it is dependent upon the affirmation of others. But when you are realizing you are the whole, you become independent, you become free, you become completely beyond the need for anything. And the organism that is the vehicle of consciousness then spontaneously fulfills the will of that consciousness, that level of intelligence, and acts in a very powerful and accurate way without having to think about it or try to figure it out from the shrunken state. And so the actions have the optimal outcome, not necessarily maximal from an individual perspective, but optimal, that serves the whole. When you are in the state of the Supreme Self, you realize time is an illusion. And it's not so much that the world is predestined, because it's as much teleologically destined from the future as from the past, because there's neither future nor past. All of it is here now. So this moment that we are in is, as in a circle, any moment, any point in the circle can be the point from which you start drawing the circle. So every point is the first point in the circle. And so because this moment now is the first moment of time, not just the latest one, once you realize time is not a temporal linear succession, then there's total freedom that is not caused by anything that happened in the past. And it's that absolute freedom from whatever past traumas the shrunken head believes are causing it to suffer now will no longer have any effect when you have an infinite intelligence. That is the creative power that brings the whole cycle of the world process of the manifestation of your infinite nature into being. And so this is where the power lies.